Okay, guys, so this next section is on communication. Some of you might have heard me talk a little bit about PACE already. I touched on it in the trauma section. PACE is the way I like to think of PACE, it's like the glue that holds your mentoring relationship together. So it's a really easy, simple acronym that will help you in a lot of situations with mentoring. And so I'm going to plan to talk a little bit about that in this section. And then we'll talk about just some basic communication skills. This is something that when we do our training face-to-face, or when we did do our training face-to-face, that we have a few little practical activities for, which hopefully we will get a chance to do when we are able to connect again face-to-face. So looking at your manual, this is in page 84, and you'll see that we have a lot of information about communication. So I really strongly encourage you to have a look at that information. It's just a really important thing to understand how to communicate to your mentee, and to also understand how their communication might be a little bit different and to have different expectations. So we'll have a little bit of a chat about the importance of good communication. Like I mentioned, some of the barriers to good communication, some of the messages that you might give your mentees with or without knowing, and we'll explore PACE. So you'll see that we have a fair bit of information here about active listening, and how important it is to tune in and to listen carefully to what our mentees are saying. So there is a difference between listening and hearing. So hearing is passive, whereas listening is active. It's something that you are actively choosing to do. So listening shows respect, it shows that you care, and it shows that the person you're talking to, you value who they are and what they have to say. So it's really important when you think about active listening. There's some really good open-ended questions that we have in the manual on this part here on page 85. Really encourage you to have a good look at that, just to think about how you can bring these into your mentoring practice. So some of the barriers that might happen with communication. So lack of attention, a lack of time and interest, following your own agenda in the conversation. So we all know that friend that kind of leaps in when we're trying to share a story. They'll jump in and say, oh yes, and then you end up feeling, oh, they've cut me right off. I'm not able to communicate what I wanted to. Closed body language, so maybe having your arms folded, maybe swinging back in your chair, looking around, on your phone, can just send a message that I'm not interested in you. Another thing I do really want to touch on, it's really important with children, crouching down to their level, if they're comfortable making eye contact, but if not eye contact, just leaning in slightly when they're listening, just being aware of having open body language so they feel like, yeah, they do want to be here with me. So the use of jargon and adult language, that's a really important thing, not to use too complicated words or, talk like you're talking to an adult. Just really remember to keep things down at the child's level. So understand their physical or cognitive disabilities that also might impact, or be a barrier to communication. And closed questions is probably the most important thing to remember. How was your day? How is do you like school? Did you have a good weekend? They're very closed questions. Yes, yes, no, sort of thing. So things that are, what was your holiday like? Tell me 3 things that you did on the weekend that were fun. Tell me, uh, did you have something yummy for tea last night? Just really keep things open, and that can really open your communication with your mentee. So it's also really important to remember that your mentee's capacity and ability to communicate is going to be different to yours. And if you have children or if you've worked with children, most likely going to be different to that experience as well. Your children or children you have worked with might be more, they might find communication easier, or it might just be different than your mentee's communication and their capacity to communicate. So that's a really important thing to remember as well. So I think there's an activity we will do. We won't be able to do it now, obviously, but there is an activity we will come back to, which will be working with communication. But now I'd really like to talk about pace. So I'm going to skip the activity section here and go onto this page, which is page 88. So pace, as I've said, pace stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. So pace promotes social engagement and it builds attachment in a safe and trusting way. So an adult with a compassionate state of mind towards the child can utilize pace to send calming, non-verbal messages to the child's amygdala, which is that little part of their brain, facilitating a switching process in the child's brain to engagement, which is amazing. So if you just think about that and really sit with that, if an adult has a compassionate state of mind towards a child, they can facilitate a switching process with the child's brain from defensiveness to engagement. If that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. It's just amazing. So PACE gives you the capacity and the ability to help you be an amygdala whisperer, which is what we all want to do. Remember that amygdala is that part of the brain that can flip a switch from fight to flight. You can be the difference. You can create an atmosphere where that little amygdala is calmed down. So what does PACE stand for? Again, starting with P, and Dan Hughes, who created PACE, I'll tell you the story. So he created PACE. He was a father of 3, and he was asked to, he's like a therapist and a doctor and a professor and all sorts of things, but he was asked to work with foster children, so children that had been in the foster care system and that were significantly traumatized and had gone through significant, I guess, brain impairment through their traumatic experiences, especially teenagers. And he thought about it, and he thought to himself, what have I done with my children? How have I raised my children? What used to work with my children? So he came up with the acronym PACE. And like I said, it stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. But he does describe the P as a little p. So it's not a big P. It doesn't always seem appropriate to use playfulness. So for example, if you were with your mentee and they were feeling sad because they'd come in at recess, something had happened and they're bursting into tears, they're just crying right in front of you. In that instance, if you thought about PACE, it would not be appropriate to crack a joke or to fall off your chair or to say, oh my goodness, something silly. It just wouldn't be appropriate to use playfulness in that context. However, playfulness can be used, and playfulness is a really, really important part of PACE. So playfulness means it's something that can build the connection with the student. So it's important to be playful. It's important to show enthusiasm when meeting with your mentee. Using a really melodic voice is really helpful. And if you're one of these people, this just doesn't come naturally to you, you can practice and you can get better at it over time. Match their affect. So if a mentee comes in and goes, hi, you match that tone. Hi, you kind of copy what the notes that their voice is making, and say their name in a positive. So, oh, Sarah, it's so great to see you. I'm so happy to see you today. The other thing playfulness can be is it can also just be a sense of silliness, like a sense of fun, a sense of lightness. These kids are often have missed out on this part of life where, like we talked about on with the child and development section, that delighting in them, that light, joyful, nurturing, kind of not babying, but just real, oh my goodness, you are so precious. And I'm so happy to be with you. Just that real gentle, light, melodic voice that they missed out on when they were little babies. But by bringing this in back into their lives is so important and so therapeutic. So playful is a really important part of mentoring. Um, the next letter is acceptance. So acceptance can be really challenging sometimes because sometimes we just want to fix things, and some of us are more fixers than others. I will say that some of us will have a default to want to fix things more than other people, and this will be more of a challenge for you. So acceptance is about just encouraging your mentee, or encouraging yourself to accept whatever um, defenses or moods they have. Accept their defenses towards the school, accept their sadness if they're feeling sad about something, just accepting who they are and where they are and what they are. And you can do that with verbal and non-verbal communication. So acceptance is a really important part. Curiosity is probably one of my favorites. So curiosity is all about open-ended questions, which can lead to them starting to use their brains to think these open-ended questions themselves. Often kids from trauma are very concrete thinkers. They're very this is how it is kind of thing. So if a mentee comes in and they're angry, instead of saying why are you angry, which can be quite defensive and it can be quite confronting, and they won't know why often, you can wonder with them in a curious tone. You can wonder why they're angry. So you might say, gosh, let's start with acceptance. You're really angry today. So you're accepting what they are. You look really angry. Acceptance. Curiosity. I wonder why you're angry today. I wonder what's happening with Sarah to make her so angry. Gosh, I wonder what it is. Really light, curious, wondering. And that can help them go, yeah, I wonder why I'm so angry. And that can open the doorway to empathy. So empathy is all about empathizing with them. So you see their world, you appreciate them as human beings, understand their feelings, and communicate that you understand. So I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's really terrible. It must be awful to feel like that. Empathy is just very simple acceptance of what they're feeling, not trying to fix it, and just I'm so sorry that's happened. So PACE is amazing, really. I use PACE all the time. Have a look in your manuals. You'll go, there's the dot points I've talked about, but there's a lot more examples in here around PACE, so playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. They're very, very, very important to get to life, I think. I often use PACE. If you're if a friend is upset, it's a great thing to practice PACE. So there are a few scenarios in here. There are two. Oh no, sorry, there's one. And what I'd like you to do is to go through the scenario. So there's a case scenario where I'd like you to apply the PACE model to this scenario. So I'll read it to you. Oh no, I won't read it to you. You guys can read it. There's a scenario here, and then I have some questions for you on the back. So I want you to think about these questions, and we will have a discussion about these reactions when we have our next Zoom meeting. So I have given you some homework, but it's really important to think about pace and to think about how you will respond using pace, and how you can imagine it might be a helpful thing to use with your mentees. So it's so important to take this from a place of compassion, and yeah, just think about why pace might be important. How might pace have helped you, down the track? How could pace have been applied? What happened to you instead of pace? So have a look at the scenarios. Have a real think about it. If you need to go and listen to it again, you're welcome to do that again. If you're really not sure and you just have no idea how you would apply pace to these scenarios, please don't stress. We will discuss that when we have our Zoom meeting really soon.